There we go. Okay, I've been a ham radio operator since 1994 as technician, and I got to tell you, my heart is in amateur radio, AUXCOMM. I can tell you hundreds of stories as a Florida trooper working in South Florida in the Keys from 1986 to 2001. Andrew went just south of my home. 42 troopers lost their homes back in 92. I've worked a lot of hurricanes and fires, and I got to tell you that when your state radio system goes down, it goes down. You leave the home in your patrol car, go to the hospital, call on the telephone and tell them that you're in the emergency room to give you a call to get an accident and leave again. Down in Broward County, amateur radio operators actually ride with the fire department. They use their amateur radio repeaters to let the SEOC know when they arrival and when they clear calls. Amateur radios are strategically placed at different fire departments. So when a call comes in, it comes through the amateur radio repeater. They relay it to the battalion chief, and whatever units go out, the hams go out. And it's very structured and the way they do things. They got it very well coordinated. In the highway patrol and law enforcement, there are lots and lots of law enforcement, EMS, 911, PSAP centers that are amateur radio operators. Our 2 meter and 440 repeaters were the best because that was basically our car-to-car channel, not our law enforcement channel. We used the analog repeaters down there and had a really good time. So it's incredible what can be done, and I really appreciate the work that we all do. For this, I became a deck coordinator. I had a private company, and don't get me wrong, business was good, but I woke up and had to come to Jesus one morning, and I was going to kill myself operating my own company with my contractors. And I said, I love radio communications. You know, since I've been a ham in 94, invested $10,000 in equipment. And so I said, FEMA is what I want to do. And my heart is in this. So hopefully one day I can go up into FEMA and complement what's being done now to make great things happen. Okay, so communications and mission critical. As we know, communications following disaster is very critical in saving lives, property response, and operations. I explained, but it's an art and a science. The art is that we learn the fundamentals of radio theory, communications, propagations, the sunspots, and then we apply that science into what we do every day when we key the mic and we make for those who do paper chasing, but also with the WinLink system and humanitarian services. It's unbelievable what can be done. When the true story, real quick, in Haiti in 2010, I was monitoring the 28.400 10-meter call channel. I heard a gentleman call with a little bit of an accent from a distance, answered him. It turned out that he was a priest on an island north of Haiti. He was in a orphanage. He lost water, no more diesel power in a generator with the church. He needed help. I remember on CNN seeing that the LA County Fire Rescue had satellite phones in Haiti, and they sent people from LA County to support the response. I called LA County Fire, spoke to a lieutenant in the communications, told him who I was. I was with DOT as a special agent, confirmed my credibility with him, retired trooper, and I said, this is what I got. I told him what I just told you. He says, I'm going to get on a sat phone and call the guys. 2 days later, I got a phone call from LA County saying that food and water and fuel was delivered to the orphanages on the island, and the priest was very thankful. Lesson learned. These things happen every day, hundreds of times in disasters, but a lot of the accomplishments that we do go unnoticed. So it's an art and a science, and interoperability enables responders and survivors to gain situation awareness and coordinate aid. Here's a photo of Puerto Rico hurricane damage in 2017. So with FEMA, the interoperability focus is that in red, we have the auxiliary communications HF amateur radio. It's very crucial. In 2005, when Katrina hit Louisiana, FEMA got slapped. The response efforts and lessons learned were not up to par. That's public knowledge, and things happen. I always teach people that I speak to, my students at the college and working with folks, that we don't have problems, we don't have troubles. We always have an opportunity for improvement. So FEMA had an opportunity improvement, and they're embracing AUXCOMM big time. With that, we have the statewide land mobile radio system with DMR, digital mobile radio communications, and also D-Star and C4FM, which is sort of like P25. As Max will say, we do have a DMR Region 5 talk group, and he'll go in more detail with that. Communications industry partner shares. I remember when I was a ham and back in the early 2000s, I wanted to be part of Share so bad. I was an Air Force Mars operator out of Florida, but I am so happy to be part of Shares right now and help the mission. Training exercises. What's very important when we do things together collectively, we need to make things informal. We have to have transparency, and we have to be able to tell each other it's okay not to agree. It's okay to disagree. I had a supervisor in FEMA tell me that you need to stay in your lane. You know, you're a telecommunication specialist. You're not a doctor. Yada yada yada, and these other things. So, having said that, you know, I said, well, the interstate is 5 lanes wide. I'm in a second lane. I'm going to change lanes into the fast lane and still go the same direction to get things done. That analogy really changed the mindset. We have emergency management, law enforcement, fire medical communications, mutual aid assistance, and cybersecurity with CISA. Now, when we talk about working together as AUXCOMMs and amateur radio operators, we have to know that what I have applied was the model of the social exchange theory. Now, I'm a psychologist in organizational psychology, so I've only been here for about 1.5 years with FEMA, and I'm taking scientific models and making use of them to make things work. When I became the coordinator of the RECCWG, I'll get into that in a minute, we only had about 85 people. As of today, I just added my 296 person to the roster here in Region 5. Our AUXCOMM are almost 100 people, the amateur radio operators alone. It's growing very rapidly. I embrace anybody who has the common knowledge and common sense to do goodwill to help humanity that want to be part of the RECCWG. I don't care if you're from Key West or North Carolina or California. And I embrace that, because what's even better if you have a ham call, you could be a relay station for Region 5. If the stuff hits the fan in Region 5, we have an earthquake or a cyber attack, and we need AUXCOMM. And we're so close together with HF on 60 meters on 5 meg that we're so close we can't hear each other. Another AUXCOMM member in Region 9 out in Arizona or what have you could actually be a relay station. So that's the mindset that we can integrate each other as a whole throughout the nation. So this scientific theoretical model provides answers to the question of how virtual communications may affect cooperation and working teams. Right now with the new norm, we're working because of the COVID variant. We're here right now. We're talking on the internet. We're having informal communications. We're learning from each other. First thing we got to do is that we have to make sure that the online interaction task uncertainties are higher than in face-to-face contacts. It goes beyond that. We have to get to understand each other one-on-one, get to know our families, get to know our expectations and other concerns. Whether if a person's handicapped or not, they have a value to the RECCWG. There's handy ham. They have disability amateur radio operators. They have a lot of potential and can do quite a bit in their own context for what their physical capabilities and their cognition can do in communication. So there's a pathway for anybody to be part of this. It's a gratifying value of peer rewards to assume to be lower in online contacts. And third, teams are different in the extent to which members depend on their peers for positive affections. We collaborate, we joke, we have a good time. you have to have where everybody has a value to what is happening in the meeting. You want to have them to have a takeaway. It's okay. There's going to be disagreements. Some things are not going to be well received as other things, but that's human nature. That goes on with if we were in person. Fourth thing is simulation results suggest positive and negative effects of team visualization on work cooperation. And this goes to where we exercise. And as I explained earlier, collaboration and transparency is very, very important. So when I came on with the RECCWG, I saw how I made personal goals that I wanted to meet. I want to have 300 people before my second year as a DEC. I want to my next third year is to get 500 people in the RECCWG. We're the largest RECCWG in the country here in Region 5. Okay, and when we do exercises, we don't want to say that we're going to do an exercise collaborative together on a moment's notice. Have a little bit of planning, have a little bit of communications and expectations, but don't change equipment, don't order equipment, don't change policies, because you need to test exactly what's in place with a certain certainty that people know that, okay, we're going to do an exercise in 2 weeks. Don't go out and order new equipment. You're going to test what you have. And then that's the true value of the after action report. Transparency, to be able to say, wow, in Illinois, I thought we had this type of equipment and we don't. I thought Indiana had a satellite phone, but it's broken. So it goes beyond that, but that's how you do exercises. You have to test the existing assets and properties and even communications and even the people themselves, test them to see what they're capable of doing. So in the engagement methods, social exchange and cooperation in a semi-virtual environment is very important. Game and payoff structure, make it enjoyable. You want to get people and compel them to come to the meeting. They want to leave with something they've learned and had some value. And the decision rule, stochastic versus deterministic. These two things have to have a balance. Reward function, the evaluation of work and the approval. We have to be analytical with the results that we have. And as I explained, no problems or troubles, we have opportunities for improvement. And the interaction of task uncertainty and team virtuality. There's got to be a component to where we really don't know what to expect. And such a short base fundamental, I didn't know what to expect with my problems with the computer, with the PowerPoint. I have to allow myself to be a little bit vulnerable in front of other people. It's human nature that we tighten up. We don't want to embarrass ourselves, but we have to show a little bit of humbleness and show that if we are vulnerable, it's okay. That's human interaction. And it helps us mold to be better participants and get to know each other. Because if you're not compelled or compel people to join in and talk, all they do is come on the screen. There is no maximum engagement because people are not sharing information. We need to compel people to come forward. And for many of the presenters that I've seen that say, okay, well, I guess I covered it. No questions. I guess I handle it. That's the wrong thing to do, because you're shutting a door to where people don't have the eagerness to ask a question. Some people are a little bit nervous to do it in front of others because maybe they think that the question or their clarification is insignificant, but that's not the case. We can always confer and meet up offline at another time. Okay, the interaction online, tie strength and team virtuality with not effective dependence, not being effective, but effective dependence. Okay, so now with the initiatives to expand collaboration within the RECCWG, we have to have interaction engagement between entities. We have to get the local government, the counties, the states, and even the federal to have a cohesive environment. So when I came into this, I came in blindsided because I didn't know what to expect with the existing politics, but I had to put that aside and take each prospect one at a time. Have joint meetings and exercises. Ask people if you have a meeting or exercise, please invite me. Attend as many webinars, seminars as possible on a topic of mutual interest that capture your mind. And here in the RECCWG, we have the Homeland Security Information Network web page that we're continuously evolving and changing, and always seek new member solicitation. I always let people know in our monthly meetings online with the RECCWG, if you know anybody who's interested in any of the subcommittees or the subject matters, please invite them. Please invite them to come. I got to tell you, when I became the DEC, I knew that FEMA gave me the flexibility to just roll with it and make things happen. And I saw the King's English when it comes to Max Schneider with his capabilities on paper. And I've heard him on the radio, and I've heard good things about Max. And I said, I want Max to be the chair of our AUXCOMM. I picked up the phone and called our co-chair, Brad Stoddard in Michigan and John Dooley in Minnesota. And I says, I want Max to be the co-chair. He's going to make things happen. He's going to do good things. And he's done a hell of a job with AUXCOMM. I'll let him talk about some of the exercises we did in activations. We had a storm, and I made a decision, and I told my supervisors in FEMA, I want to activate the 60-meter net. I want to activate the DMR net and the CISA shares and WindLink. They said, go ahead. I called headquarters, got on the phone, says, make it happen. And in 4 hours, because of Max Schneider's collaboration and instrumental coordination, for 12-hour shift, for a 12-hour day, actually going into the middle of the night, we had every minute of every hour covered on all the nets by our AUXCOMM at a moment's notice. So that's what we're here for. Okay, so in the RECCWG, this is, as I explained earlier, after Katrina, FEMA got their hands slapped, and the Congress said, okay, we're going to make DECs, special communications experts in each region, that are going to be the advisors for the watch office, the operations, from land mobile radios to the FNARs to AUXCOMM. And we're going to make the RECCWG the Regional Emergency Communications Coordinating Working Group. And there's going to be a chair and a co-chair, and there's going to be private industry, and we're going to make things happen. And when something happens or a disaster happens for a response, it's pretty much for ESF2, emergency communications, a one-stop shop. I'm changing the philosophy in the mindset of the old culture or the old school when it comes to communications. They thought it was a HF radio, land mobile radio. But ESF2 now with new technology involves Wi-Fi, cable, internet. And so I'm trying to get the word communications changed to say telecommunications. But the Congress mandated that RECCWGs will be positioned in all 9 regions. The RECCWG coordination will bring all jurisdiction disciplines together. And I'll cover that in a minute. In Region 5 RECCWG composition, that's Civil Air Patrol on the left, CAP. Supporters are our internal FEMA partners, state and local, 19%, tribal is 1%. We're still trying to do outreach on that. Federal agencies, 23%, private industry, 6%. The highest, ladies and gentlemen, right there, AUXCOMM, 27%. Now, in a year and a half, we had a 227% growth in participation from 82 to now 295 members as today, representing the RECCWG. In the RECCWG leadership committees, we have Kevin Sly, who's our regional administrator, acting regional administrator in Region 5. Brad Stoddard is the co-chair for the RECCWG. He's a SWIC for state of Michigan. John Dooley is RECCWG chair for IPAWS program manager, state of Minnesota. Now the subcommittee chairs are AUXCOMM, Max Schneider. We have cross-border interoperability communications, Bryce Tracy out of Michigan, up in Mackinac County. Governance, James Stromberg with CISA. IPAWS is John Dooley in Minnesota. LTE broadband, here we go, ESF2 communications. Cable, internet, Wi-Fi, Bill Springer and Tony Patino, who's also a disaster manager response coordinator for T-Mobile. Standard operating procedures is an open position right now. We have a training exercise, John Cheney. Tribal liaison is Troy Christian. Usage and mutual aid is Paul Hughes, the assistant SWIC of Wisconsin. And the Web EOC, which is the state Web EOCs with Jacqueline Barcroft out of Michigan. Out of these 7 or so subcommittees, all the 295 people that we have on the roster are blended and allocated specifically to these groups. In the annual report, this is what's incredible. The annual report of the AUXCOMM accomplishments are written in each year. And every year that annual report goes to each member of Congress, because this is congressional law, that the RECCWG will have a strong standing and coordination for opportunities for improvement, show success and the capabilities of complementing FEMA and disasters. And so the things that we do, the exercises that we do, anything that Max does in terms of exercises, the dates, how many participants are broken down in this report that Congress will read. And I am very happy to say, because it's been a hard work, that Region 5 is maximizing their engagement to show within the other 8 regions what the RECCWGs are doing. And we also have a national monthly report. So it provides a mechanism of national attention for federal government ESF2 and partners with congressional authority. This is my contact information. K9ODH is my call sign. November Alpha Kilo Alpha is my CISA shares, and my beacon stations X-Ray Alpha. And we have Kilo Foxtrot 5 Echo Mike Alpha, which is the call sign issued to FEMA for AUXCOMM on both amateur and the CISA shares frequencies. So having said that, do we have any questions so far for the group? I know I covered a lot. Hold on.
What process do you use to activate your AUXCOMM operators?
That's a good question. Thank you very much. I would follow the procedure right now that we have in place, because I've only been here for a year and a half. Each region is different. I notify my leadership that we need to notify AUXCOMM. I'm making a sort of a decision. I want to do it, make it happen. I contact Max. If Max was on vacation or unavailable, I'd contact his next co-chair in the group, which right now could be Skip, who's another digital manager. Then I make a phone call to headquarters, to our headquarters with the it's the communications frequency spectrum manager. I tell them contact FCC, let's do a memo, contact FCC and CISA shares that we want to activate CISA shares, WinLink, the 60 meter net, and this is the frequency we want to use. And then Max notifies his people. He has his method of communicating by internet and telephones for his contacts to get into place. And I got to be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect, because we had this strong derecho storm coming in July that was forecast to do a lot of damage. And I said, let's be proactive, not reactive. Let's get this going now. And we did in 4 hours. And I'm very pleased and very proud of what Max has done, and all the folks on that call, all the folks on the radios doing the nets, that we came together so fast. But it took 2 hours to get it going from when I made the decision to activate, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? I'm very pleased to work with Steve Waterman. I've known Steve since 2006 when I was Air Force Mars, and hell of a guy. I'm learning to meet a lot of people around the country. You're interested in joining the RECCWG? I encourage you to contact, for those who live maybe in Florida, or North Carolina, contact Region 4, Donnie Monet and Joe Robichaud. They're the coordinators for the deck. I'm in Region 5. If you'd like to join Region 5, you're more than welcome. We can always use you in any capacity, just as we are here virtually. And I'm a very strong proponent of amateur radio. It works. I've seen it. I've seen it in the field after Andrew. I've seen it when Hurricane George went through Key West. And do foam patches on 2 meters to call my wife. And it's awesome. Any other questions? Okay, I think Max, if I can get back to you, I got your slide up, sir, and I'll turn it over to you.
You do it. And it looks like excuse me, just before we go to that, it looks like Dan in California has a question for you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He's got his hand up there.
Carl, first, I'm really impressed with your background. That kind
Thanks.
of eclectic set of accomplishments says a lot. And as soon as you rolled off the word stochastic, you got more than my full attention. And the question was answered. I thought I heard you say the other 8 FEMA regions, and I've been carrying around this mental picture of 10 FEMA regions. So
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's my ADHD. The other 9 FEMA regions, we have 10. Yes, I appreciate that, sir. Thank you for the correction.
well, no, kudos. Well, I mean, what you're doing, if it happened in the other 9 regions, I think probably this group wouldn't exist, because there wouldn't be that element of dissatisfaction with how amateurs can contribute what they are capable of doing when their communities need them.
Thank you, sir. I'll give you two quick examples. I had a SWIC with one of the states at the EOC tell me that, why do I need that? I really don't need it. We got a sat phone. Why do I need this technology? And I told him on the phone, now you got to understand, if I have the strength and mental cognition to arrest someone for DUI, or arrest someone for reckless driving, or shoot someone, I have the strength and ability to tell a SWIC, you want to do this, because if the general public found out that this technology existed, you don't want 60 minutes showing up at your home after a disaster asking questions. Because of that, we have probably over half of Region 5 states having shares and getting WinLink RMS stations. Another thing. Go ahead.
No, you please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me make a suggestion.
Yes.
Let Max finish, and then we'll have questions from everybody.
Okay. Yes, sir. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just looking at the clock here.
Okay, Max, my crime fighting partner, you got it, sir.
All right. Well, you've embarrassed me enough, I guess, with all this stuff. I'm going to start out by just telling you there's 2 sides to every story, and I won't tell you the other side of it yet. But I would, where Karl has given me a lot of credit, what I want to do is just to really give credit to the AUXCOMM committee and the team members that make that up. It was through their effort that we were able to really help out in whatever way we did, and we learned a lot out of that, and I'll get into that in a moment. If you could go ahead to the next slide, please. So in FEMA Region 5, the AUXCOMM committee, our mission is pretty simple. What we're there to do is to support and enhance interoperability between the 6 states that comprise the region. So that's Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. on the periphery of that is just when we're communicating with each other well, we also then, as Carl has pointed out, want to be able to communicate with other states and other regions as well, because the borders don't end there. Disasters don't know borders. We promote auxiliary communication development in each of the states within the region. So we help each other, and we look for opportunities for being able to enhance interstate communication capabilities. When we think of auxiliary communication and interoperability, it's all about, first, as you know, local incidents happen on a local level, right? And so the local agencies need to be able to talk to one another. The local needs to be able to talk to other counties. They need to be able to talk to the state. And at some point, where the counties border on the state borders, they need to talk to the folks in the next state over. Or if you're getting into mutual assistance planning, then again, mutual aid planning, you're going to get into states having to communicate with each other. And throughout all of that, we have something called PACE planning that gets done. And we got into that quite a bit in our exercise, and I'll talk about that shortly. PACE is primary, alternate, contingent, and emergency levels of planning. Just thinking of it as just keep peeling the layers of the onion. And as that first layer goes away, what are you going to do for the next layer and down? And how does the amateur community fit into that? How does auxiliary communications fit into that in all of the different ways that communications take place? Membership, as Karl has said, is open. He's opened the doors to the RECCWG, and by extension, the AUXCOMM committee is open. You don't need to have an amateur radio license to join it. We have people in there who are part of emergency communications that aren't necessarily also amateur radio operators. We don't necessarily, they're not, and if they are amateur radio operators, they may be running an amateur radio in support of ARES. They may be ARES members. They may be there from Mars. We've got Army Mars. I think we've got Air Force Mars represented in there. We've got a variety of groups that are represented in. We meet on the third Monday of the month. It's a virtual meeting, so it's easy to get to. It's been on WebEx. It's about to change to Zoom this month, but third Monday of the month, 8 Eastern, we're done in an hour. So if you're interested in joining, reach out to me and you'll see the contact information at the end. I'd be happy to have you come in. Can we go to the next slide, please? So some of the things that we do on an ongoing basis, we do get together once a month, rain or shine, no matter the time of the year. We're going to get together. We go round table. We'll have some things that we'll be talking about as might be parts of planning for upcoming exercises and so forth. But fundamentally, we have an hour call that we do there. We also test our voice capabilities in terms of, Karl has alluded to use of 60 meters and so forth. We actually have established 4 different nets or 4 different modes and bands that we'll operate on. So we operate on 60 meters. And then we'll operate on 40 meters. We also have D-Star. We have a reflector that we'll meet on. And then, as Karl had indicated, we have a Brandmeister group, 31673. It's designated as R5 AUXCOMM. And that's the 4th place that we meet. And so when we get together on the second and 4th Sunday of the month, 4 in the afternoon Eastern, we work in 10-minute cycles. We'll start out on 60 meters for 10 minutes. We'll start out on channel 4. If channel 4 is busy, we'll go to 5, 1, 2, 3 in that order, and we'll get connected. Then when we're done with that, we move over to 2780 7280. I got dyslexia tonight. 7280 and down on 40 meters. And we'll establish connection there. This is where our neighbors come into play, because we'll get a lot of relay going on. If you get connections and trying to make connections with folks in Michigan, we're just going to go right over the top of each other and land in Illinois or Wisconsin and so forth. We meet then and we set the HF aside, and we'll get together on D-Star, on reflector 24 alpha, and then finally on the DMR for the last 10 minutes of it. At the same time that's going on, starting at about noon that day until sometime late at night when Skip goes to bed, I guess, we do the same Sundays, we do a WinLink test, and we run a net there. And basically that's just a check-in. So you send a WinLink check-in message to Skip, and he's able to log all of that. So it's a good opportunity if you're not using WinLink any other way to be able to just test your basic capability. He will expand that over time and maybe give us something else to do as part of those exercises. And then last but not least, we've also we help to develop and participate in the exercises that are conducted with our RECCWG members, other RECCWG members. So that's a fun and interesting process in and of itself. Can we go to the next slide, please? Just very briefly, the name you see down at the bottom there, Mark Breckenridge, he's our NDAW, he's our net manager. He happens to also be the District 2 coordinator here in Michigan. He's our net manager for the VoiceNet, and he's put together the plan that you see in front of you. So this is the order of attack for us. If we got into a live event and we didn't have the opportunity to know in advance what we were going to be doing, how we were going to establish our communications, then this is the order in which we would go tackling it. We would seek to gain the connectivity in this order. Once we have a circuit established, then we would be able to continue to operate in that way. We can go to the next slide, please. Some of the things that we worked on recently, Hennepin County up in Minnesota, they held a set. They had a set of communication plans put together. They wanted to do some band testing, and so they looked for a couple of windows where they asked people from all around the region to try and check in on them. And on 80 and 40, I think it was, that they were trying for. They may have had something in 22, I don't remember. But that was held last November. In March this year, we did a tabletop exercise. This was for the entire RECCWG. Interesting in and of itself in that it was done virtually thanks to the pandemic. And it was done very well. It was a guided discussion. We had each state was in its own room, if you will, and it was facilitated. And we had a variety of people from the state level and the local level, different counties represented in each state, different agencies represented, plus AUXCOMM in each of those rooms. And so that was an interesting discussion. A couple of things that came out of it was in the after action report was lots of opportunities for incorporating AUXCOMM further into it. That was emphasized a lot in there as part of the PACE plan. And then give you another example of things learned. I mean, Karl made a reference to the satellite phones, so they said, yeah, we got satellite phones and we'd use that as a part of our alternate for communications. That's great, the facilitator said. So when do you turn them on, right? When do you start listening for them to ring? So they had to figure out what the trigger is going to be. That's another item for the after action report. And then a bigger one is, by the way, you need to call somebody. Who you're going to call, and do you have their number? Because you can't use the regular number anymore. Do you know how to reach? Do you know how to set up the sat phone? And do you have a call list? So that was an aha moment for a lot of states. I think probably every state as well in that one. So in July, we had the weather event that Karl referred to. I got a call from Karl. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon, and he says, "Boy, you're hard to get a hold of." I didn't realize he was trying to get a hold of me yet, but I think he was harassing me. But yeah, we did that. It was an interesting exercise, and as Karl says, there's no problems or troubles. It worked. It has a lot of opportunity for improvement, and so that was a good part of it. Is that we've figured out some things that we're going to do there to for the next time that happens. And so it was a good exercise to be able to go through that even as a live event. Let's see here. We had voice networks, as he said, this storm system, as he said, it was a derecho that moved through. It actually did spin up, as I believe, some tornadoes and a lot of power outages, a lot of downed trees, heavy winds that moved through southern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. It dipped down into Illinois, Indiana. I think it came up into Michigan a little bit, kind of kissed it, and then went off into central Ohio and started to peter out finally in the morning. But it was a brought a good bit of rain with it as well. And the voice networks we'd used 60 meters, and oh, that was hot. That was hard. That was tough. And DMR was a much nicer place to collect situation reports. And so we did have people checking in throughout the night. Next slide, please. Planned activities. So these are some of the things that we have coming up. Coming out of the tabletop exercise, there was some discussion around the use of shares and FNARs, and that got bundled into AUXCOMM. And depending on who you talk to, it is or isn't, but at the end of the day, it's what our served agency wants. And to me, the served agency or the served partner here is FEMA. And so when they say, and the members of the FEMA work group from the emergency management organizations, when they say, well, we want you guys to get the share stuff organized, what they're asking for is they want us to put together a set of nets to be able to test the shares capability and both in voice and data between the states in the region, and then also to do something similar with the FNARS equipment. FEMA has given permission, I don't know if last year, I think is when they started to open that up, to say that FNARS is really, it was put in there in place originally so that a state could contact the federal agency to ask for a declaration when they had no other way of getting in. They've opened it up now to allow states to communicate with one another and even be able to conduct tests like that. So we're going to work up some plans for that. And then last but not least, again, exercise. So following up from the tabletop exercise, we're going to scale that up. And I think it's early 2022 now is what we're looking at, working with Karl and the planning folks to create a functional exercise out of that, what we learned as Operation Frostbite Round 2 or whatever the nickname for that's going to be. Next slide, please. So over the last couple of weeks, you've heard from South Carolina and you've heard from North Carolina about some initiatives and issues that have been discovered and were being raised. Our turn tonight, and what we're going to talk about here is that we need to have some what I think of as hailing frequencies. So if you think about the 2 meter and VHF, UHF simplex world of amateur radio, we've got hailing frequencies that are out there. And so what we need is something similar to that. So someplace where, it's frequencies that are set aside for that purpose, so that you can make contact, and then once established contact, then move off to an appropriate frequency elsewhere. Next slide, please. So kind of the corollary to that, oops, sorry, back up one if you could. There you go. And the corollary to that then is really we'd like to get a rule put in place that designates a frequency on each of the HF bands that sets up these stations to allow stations to set up for monitoring, so that folks don't have to kind of just scan a band listening for everything. They can, if they want to, they can open into a specific frequencies like that. And with that, I think then if we go to the last slide, and that's my contact information. So if you have any questions for me afterward that we don't get to cover tonight, feel free to reach out to me. I am KE8DLN, and I also go by the call sign CAV5EMA if when we're operating either in the net or under the exercise. Actually, the net control will operate under that. So with that, I turn it back over to you, Karl.
Thank you very much for that, Max. Great presentation. Great wealth of information that was been provided. Anybody have any questions of Max? Please use the chat box. Don't be shy, and or go ahead and activate your mic and shoot away. You want to take care of that question? We have a shares member setting up the NVIS antenna in the backyard in which to start testing propagation by sending an email through nearby shares RMS stations. They've got a service code. Yeah.
Oscar, you have a question?
Yeah. Is any special guidelines to Station Oregon?
Yes, you have to raise the hand. That's what I did, or write the question on the comments on the chat. By the way, Karl, and Max, your leadership is really impressive, and understanding of the problem, because when the catastrophe coming hits any area, you have to deal with a lot of human factor. And it's extremely important to get the most out of each person that is helping you. And you have to work for the right focus, everybody for the goal and the mission that you're dealing with. As you mentioned, Hurricane Maria and all other events. And this is the type of training and organization that we need to share with everyone, because that is a real example that both of you have shown. And definitely it helps the part of understanding the society and mental, and including the mental health of everybody during the event, because what you are today is not exactly how you're going to behave during an event. And I do understand what you're saying, and definitely I appreciate your comments and coming up and presented. And somehow we need to share, this is actually my comment, we need to share this more often and train the people properly so they can understand how it can be done, and use whatever resources they have at the moment of the event, not looking for a catalog, because what you have is what you need to use, not what you wish. So definitely congratulations, both of you. Back to you, Karl.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Pleasure to meet you and see you here in the meeting. Thank you so much.
There was one question that was put in very early by Phil Sherrod. What do you have any specific NIMS requirements for your volunteers?
To come on board with the RECCWG, the fact that you're a radio operator and have a FCC license, you've demonstrated the fundamentals already for the government. We could always use your assets, because you're a volunteer, to come on in. Now, when it comes to training, if you respond to a disaster out in the field, of course, you're going to need those prerequisites to be able to do things out in the field, or be a COML or a COMT, or part of the response. But that'll come in time. To come into RECCWG right now, I don't feel that you need to be a COML or COMT or have specific training in NIMS. Once we get you on board and you learn the fundamentals, you learn the process, you attend these meetings, then that'll come in time.
Yeah, also the states and the counties have their requirements.
Right.
So your nearby agencies are going to dictate that qualification, whether FEMA does or not.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to add, Steve. Was that we don't put any, from an AUXCOMM perspective, we don't put any additional requirements or any specific requirements on people coming in. If they have, as Karl has said, if they have a license, and they're coming into this, then their ability to work and to help out is going to have been, added to by the training and the whatever requirements they'll have met for their county or for the state, wherever they're coming from.
Thank you.
ISA in Oregon?
Paul in Oregon.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I wasn't sure. Did I get an answer to my question or what?
That was your question in the chat, wasn't it? You're looking for some help on getting your service codes or looking for guidelines on how to test your WinLink capability and shares.
I mean, I know how to do it. Do I just go ahead and just do it?
I'm going to throw that one over to Steve.
I don't know what you're asking, but if it's a shares question, can you just repeat your question?
Yeah, basically what I'm doing in Oregon is I put up my HF antenna, and there's some WinLink nets that I check into. So I use different high frequency stations all over the Western US and check into like a Yamhill County net that allows WinLink check-ins. So I'm thinking for share stations, I could probably do the same thing, except I've noticed that when I download a message, it'll say like where it came from. So I'm just wanting to make sure I don't let out
No, it's okay.
secret information or
This is
something.
not Mars. This is not Title 10. It's very important. If you notice that all radio message servers have a state designator, it's very important for everybody to know where these stations are. This is not, this is Title 32 civil authorities. There's 11 radio message servers on shares in Washington. There's 1 in Oregon. There's 7 in California. They're all over the place. There's 3 in Idaho, Montana, Arizona. There's 2. They're all over the place, and you are free to use them anytime you wish. You can email anybody. You can email an amateur radio station who can pick up the message on the ham bands as long as he follows Part 97 and you don't exceed the Part 97 rules to get him in trouble by trying to obscure the content or whatever. You have to, that's something you have to know as an amateur radio operator, what those rules are. But as long as you don't breach them, you can email anybody anytime. That network is there for you to use.
All right, that helps. Thank you.
Sure.
If I may cover the question here, it says, how do we get the invitation on Zoom twice monthly for the RECCWG meeting in AUXCOMM? Please contact Max or myself, and we have to get on a distribution list and get you entered in the Homeland Security Information Network as a user. I have the ability to nominate and validate your account, so you have access to the website, and then get you on board with our AUXCOMM and introduce you to Max or vice versa. So if you're interested in those meetings, once you're in the distro list,
the distribution list for the AUXCOMM meetings, those that are held on the third bonsais.
yes.
Let's see
Okay.
here. I see other questions. You want to just run down that list? It looks like we don't have any hands up right now.
Go ahead, Max. You got it.
Okay, so let's see here. From Dan again, has Michigan Airways been a longtime source of AUXCOMM volunteers, or has that blossomed in the last year or so that you've taken on that responsibility? Well, AUXCOMM has grown. We started to talk about AUXCOMM probably back 2012, 2014, I think it was, with my predecessor, John McDonough. He's a silent key WB at RCR. And so he's kind of started the ball rolling, began talking of AUXCOMM. We formed an AUXCOMM work group that's meets, it's chartered and exists under the, as a subcommittee of the Michigan, the MPS-CIB, which is the Michigan Public Safety Communication Interoperability Board. And so that's in existence. As the AUXCOMM coordinator, I co-chair that committee with Jacqueline Barcroft. She's out of the Emergency Management Homeland Security Division in Michigan. And in the last, it was about 2 to 3 years ago is when the workbook was first published. I think 2018, 2019, or the task book, I should say, for AUXCOMM was published by CISA. And we've taken that in. We've been running the AUXCOMM workshop for a few years, much as North Carolina has. You heard about them last week. And so we're looking to just continue to train and get folks recognized as AUXCOMM credentialed as AUXCs. In other words, as auxiliary communicators for the position in the incident command structure. I'm trying to speak in words instead of acronyms. My predecessor was always saying in acronyms. So before I'll give you an acronym like ICS, I try and spell it out, or RECCWG.
Is there I know there is a URL that has all of the acronyms in it that the people could look up?
Yeah, it's called, you can write this down, it's google.com. And that's what I usually rely on when I can't find something, or I'll ask somebody what it spells.
Can you put that in the chat, please, somebody?
Google. So let's see here. And along that line, Peter had asked for a list of the acronyms in the meetings. If we threw one out there, if I threw an acronym out there without spelling it for you the first time, I apologize. I owe you $1. I used to do that to people that I worked with. So if you got a specific one you'd like to know, feel free to shout it out, and we'll give you that one tonight.
There was a apology to saying Mackinac County. I know it's Mackinac. I'm sorry, that was my English to Spanish translation in my mind.
That's all right. Bryce isn't on the call. We'll let it go. Let's see here. We have one for you, Carl. It says, how do we contact our DEC in the other regions? And this person is Jim, NZ0Q in Kansas. He's in Region 7.
Hey, Jim, thank you for the question. Absolutely. Send me an email. I will get you involved. First of all, do you have access to the RECCWG HISN site at the present time? I'll give them a chance to say yes or no. If you do, no. Okay. Email me. I'll get you settled up in HISN, and all the point of contacts for every region and all the chairs are listed in the website, and I'll get you going on that.
Okay. Let's see here. Pat, N7 PAT in Utah, is asking, I've heard no mention of RECCWG. How does that fit into the picture? So RECCWG, like AUXCOMM, is not an organization. As we all know, it's a service. And so it was a designation put in place by the FCC back in the Cold War era to be able to let the amateurs back on the air in the event of a declaration of war or any other case where they were banning amateur use. And so it still exists, and that is basically our relief valve in order to be able to say during an incident, if we got into some situation where amateur radio use was prohibited, then it would still allow us back in there. But it's precluded, the use of it, the purpose behind it is really kind of set aside, because when you think about the way the nature of communications today, communication capabilities have evolved dramatically in the last couple of decades. And so it's less about often about the resiliency of the served agencies' equipment or their systems, and more about our being able to supplement them within the context of a PACE plan, or even to be able to support them with their systems in some cases. So RECCWG has a role it plays in there. We don't have a structure of any kind that defines RECCWG within AUXCOMM. But people who are qualified to serve under RECCWG, of course, are part of the AUXCOMM program, if you will, or they already are auxiliary communicators, even if they're not already formally trained and recognized in that respect.
That's a great explanation. For those on a call, on our contact information, you have my email and also my phone number. Please give me a call. If I don't answer, leave a voicemail or fast response, send a text message to my government phone. I will get back to you. I'm not an 8 to 5 person. I work all night. The other day I worked till 2 in the morning. I still claim 8 hours pay on my timesheet, but anyway, I will get back to you.
I will attest to that. I don't stay up all night to see what the emails are from Carl, but I do see a slew of them in the morning when I get up sometimes. Carl, this is one for you, Carl. I think it says, I have a HISN account. How do I just join the group?
You should be able to. If you have an issue, contact me. I will help you resolve that issue to join the RECCWG automatically. It should be instantaneous, like a 24-hour turnaround. You're welcome.
Let's see here. Yeah,
Don't be shy, guys.
That looks like all the questions that are in the chat for the moment.
If you don't want to use chat, undo your audio, video, and show yourself, and bring on the questions.
Let's not invite that, because everybody will be doubling. Raise your hand
Okay.
if you want to talk, and we'll get you on there.
I'm learning. Sorry about that.
Dan rules these calls with an iron fist.
Okay, Carl, I might ask, after the presentation here, can you send your the slides to me, K7REX? Even if you want to send it as the PowerPoint, fine. I'm going to convert it to a PDF. You want to do that beforehand, it makes it for a smaller file. But that will get all this information. You present a night out there to everybody that's going to be watching these videos afterwards.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. I'll be happy to do that.
We just got another question that came in. Is there a Region 5 field operations guide?
Yes, there's not a Region 5 field operations guide. We do have I correct that. We do have an interoperability guide for AUXCOMM that Ross Merlin was instrumental in putting together with the CISA. I believe the last publishing date was 2018, I believe. That is available online, but each state you can go to, like for example, Illinois and Wisconsin, or go to the state EOC website. And when you use the hyperlink to get to the Emergency Operations Center, there should be an area where you can download that state's publishing guide for each state as well. But yes, we do. Yes, we do. It's the interoperability guide.
The interoperability would be a federal issue. The mutual aid would be by state, and the mutual aid, usually there is an AUXFOG with the AUXCOMM, the government CCD, CISA, Emergency Communication Division's AUXCOMM subcommittee has put together an AUXFOG. In fact, is getting ready to come out with a new version of that. But there's a Facebook page if you're interested in AUXCOMM for every region, any region, and it's called something about brothers and sisters. I don't remember what it is, but you can find it. I think it's AUXCOMM Brothers and Sisters. I'm not
Brotherhood
sure.
and sisterhood, I think. Yeah.
And it's pretty informative. It lists all publications. Georgia just came up with their Georgia FOG, whatever they call that. And South Carolina, I believe, has one. Roger Mull's on here. He might be able to verify that. But many states have their own version of the federal NIFOG for their own state, which includes a lot of things depending on the state. Thank you. Karl,
Absolutely.
we really appreciate what you've done here, and Max. A lot of people have heard of the FEMA RECCWG in the various regions, and the AUXCOMM, you are 100% correct as far as my verification. It's coming on strong in many regions, Region 4, Region 5, Region 10, even Region 8. Talking to the chairman of that region, they're growing like a weed. Sometimes that's all there is in a region, and sometimes it's an afterthought depending on the region. But you are definitely leading the pack. There's no question about that. You two are right down with it. And usually it's the states that lead the region. In this case, it's the region that's leading the states, bar all of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For that. Thank you for that, Max. And Steve, you had a big part of this as well. Thank you.
Okay,
Looks like I have a couple of hands up.
go ahead.
Looks like
Dan,
we have
you
a
wanna-
couple of hands. Yeah, go ahead, Dan, if you want to moderate it.
Was that big D or little d?
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. So I got to point out that the similarities between the last three presentations, which are centered on AUXCOMM utilization of amateur radio operators, all have gone through the same levels and kinds of growth. It seems to be a very consistent method to integrate those amateur radios willing to take the time to prepare themselves with the didactics and learn to work as part of the team to do what is theoretically the ideal highest value of Aries. And I'm saying that because I'm struggling with trying to figure out how to convey to ARRL that they'd be way ahead of the game if they supported AUXCOMM and the training prerequisites and could somehow wrangle out of that the affiliation requirement so that if you had everything, all the same, 4 core professional development series, maybe even ICS 300 and 400, that instead of the EC 016, they support and make it possible for better access to AUXCOMM classes. And every time I try to talk to them about it, they've got a different agenda, but they say, we never thought of that. So I'm just going to keep telling it to them. And
There's absolutely, Dan, there's what's called impact psychology. It's straight in your face and how it is. You know, if you want to change the mindset on why police officers around this country need funding for DUI test equipment and cameras and recorders, ride with any police officer on a Friday night. Go to the emergency room and see what they see. The different organizations, administrators, and communications need to go out in the field. I'm not saying that they don't, and I'm being humble when I say this, to see the radio operators volunteer their time under tense and harsh conditions and making an exchange of communications work.
yeah, it's kind of interesting because ARRL's focus is communications, and every feature of emergency management requires communications, not as a function in and of itself, but so they can fulfill every other function. And if you don't consider us like the milkman coming in the morning, then you got the wrong impression of what we're about.
Yeah. If you, the next hand coming up, I see here is someone I know well, because he's from REACT, and it kind of speaks to the point of AUXCOMM. It's AUXCOMM. When John Peterson comes in, and is it next week or the week after, when he comes in and talks about it, I'll give you a sneak preview of that. He's probably going to tell you a little bit of the history of it. The idea of it is that it's an umbrella of all of the different groups that make up amateur radio. So it's ARES, it's folks who operate under RACES, it's the Saturn people, it's REACT, it's Mars, it's people with family radio service radios, people with citizens band radios only, and things like that, even without amateur licenses. It's a function, it's a discipline, and it's a training, and it's an interoperability capability that they learn with that discipline of professionalism to be able to serve the agencies and whatever need they need to do. And that's all about meeting the objective of the incident. So that's what the focus has to be.
All right, now I know what kind of criminal activities you two are up to.
So,
Okay, do you want to take another question here?
sure.
Sure.
Looks like we got Kirk is up next.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Great presentation, Carl and Max. I did what you did ask to do, Max, and that is I went to Google to try to find the 2020 RECCWG annual report to Congress, and I could not find that searching in a number of places. Any suggestions where I could find that?
Good, very good question. That hasn't been published as of yet. It went to the FCC for review for their acquiring their comments and recommendations and additions. Yes, but I completed Region 5 and I submitted it the mid part of June. And the May, mid part of June. So it went through various channels. It hasn't been published yet. So I'm speculating that it would be fair to say around October, it should be available, or next, well, yeah, where we're in September, by the end of the year, it should be. If you don't have a copy of it, please feel free to let me know. It's a public document, and I'll be able to help you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You're saying that the publication of it is moving at the speed of government.
Yeah.
It might beat the new NIFOG.
Okay, looking at the time here, do we got any more questions, either in chat or a handheld or a comment?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Great presentation, guys. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you for
Carl,
having
I
us.
have one
I
comment.
answered your email earlier just before we started this, and I hope I got the information to you needed there regarding your FEMA newsletter thing.
Yes, sir.
This will end up on YouTube. Some of the august body you spoke about will sneak in and listen to it, and they'll get something whether they want to or not. They'll get something out of it.
This is W9PFD, and I do have one comment along those lines.
Go ahead.
I was the section manager in Illinois from 1982 to 1988. And during those 6 years, I continually petitioned the league to have a mechanism for membership in ARES without being a dues paying member of ARRL. So anybody who's telling you they ain't heard it before, either they have a very short institutional memory or they just don't want to remember.
Oh, you're talking about the people at Newington?
Those
haven't-
people.
They haven't been there but for a few months.
Well, I suppose there's some
and
truth
there's-
to that, but
and there's
Dave
10
Sumner surely had
slots
heard this a
open.
lot of times.
Yeah, and there's 10 slots open. So, that's why it's important to continually provide input. This morning, I invited the new whatever he is and his boss at Newington to attend the FEMA ESF2 watch daily report on the activities and progress being made in Louisiana and Mississippi for Hurricane Ida. And I promise you, they learned something, even if they weren't listening.
It's an ongoing battle. We all have our needs and wants. Fortunately, the ARRL is starting to open up and talk to us more in the field. We're looking for them to open their ears also and listen to what we got to say. With that, I'm also a section manager, and I appreciate what you're going through there. Are there any more questions or comments?
Well, a comment real quick. David is W9PFD. There is one of our folks in the AUXCOMM committee, and whenever he's not able to check into the net, I'm always a little leery because we may not make our contacts as well in 40 meters. He's our anchor man out there in Illinois, able to bring it all back together again. So appreciate the work he does in there. Just to clarify on your comment there, David, when you refer to ARRL membership, are you referring to the field appointments, or are you talking about general membership in areas? Because to my knowledge, I can give you a card today. If you have an amateur radio license and an interest in emergency communications, I can give you an ARES card. You don't have to be an ARRL member for that.
Yeah, I was talking about some of the specific field appointments, but.
So you're talking about the EC position, DEC and so forth.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of counties where we don't have ECs.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, people are not inclined to join the organization in order to become an EC. And I agree that I understand that their institutional memory is rather short right now because of the amount of turnover and open positions. But this certainly is not a new concept to the league writ large. And I also agree with what Steve said, that we need to put this before them every chance we get.
Let me add here if I can. The league is trying to reinvent themselves. I would say around areas. They've got a committee now looking at things. They're asking field questions. They're trying to do things differently. I think we give a little bit of chance to see what surfaces out of this. I got a lot of faith that we'll see some good stuff. At least they're trying something different. And they've been doing the same thing for years and got the same results. Now they're trying something different to see what happens. Okay, I don't see more hands. I don't see the questions that we missed. One more chance for comments. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close this down so those on the East Coast can finally get to bed. It's about 10:30 their time. We're getting close to it. I thank again for very much, been a great presentation. Thanks for Steve for making this happen. And we look forward to later on hearing from you guys again. With that, we're going to say 73s, and thanks again, everyone.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the
7-3, God
opportunity.
bless.
Take
7-3.
care.